Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today what we're going to see is how to handle multiple languages in your web application. This approach is purely front-end based. Front-end based in the sense how you're how you do it. You know, you're not taking any support from your backend server side or database, uh, anything like that. This is purely front-end based solution. So uh, let's look at the app, how it behaves. This is our app. So it has a selection of multiple languages. Based on the language that you select, the internal text will change. So let's go with English first. So there's a disclaimer, and then you have so this is basically a survey app. So you have questions and you have responses to that. So question one, option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So like that, and user can select their options, and then they can go to the end and then submit this. So this is in English, this is the default, and let's try to select some other language. So suppose let's go with Hindi. Disclaimer comes up, and then you have your question and answers. So now if you see, the question text has changed, and in the other options you have question text as well as the the survey options also changing. So you can see all of these questions and their options. So based on the language, this will change. Let's go with another language. Let's go with Malayalam. So you can see that, right? Your question text has changed. Your answer options have changed. Now, how do we achieve this? So there are two parts to it. One is our HTML side, and the second is JavaScript. On the HTML side, we need to ensure that our elements are in such a shape that they can be easily updated. So let's read through it. To change the text based on the language selection, each target HTML element needs to be named. So either you name it and then look them up, or you need to provide them an ID. I prefer going with ID. It's simpler and old approach. And the second is you should have a language drop down. So we saw the language drop down already. Now let's see. So what happens is, on the language drop down, once you select the language, the text will change. So all these IDs will be updated with the selected respective language text. So let's see how this is done. The first option. Let's go to our code and the HTML. So in the HTML, let's see the first question. So this is our first question. So you have question text, and then the options, answer options. So question text is identified with this ID q1txt, and the options for question 1 are hard coded, so they don't need to be changed based on the language. So there is no ID associated with them. There is an ID, but we are not using that. This is just to capture the end result based on the user, when he submits it. For that we need this ID. For second question, and this is our second question. So the question text is q2txt, and the answer text is a2 first option txt, then a2 second option txt. So that is how we have structured it. Let's see the third one. So the question q3txt, and the answer options a3 the first option, a3 the second option, and so on and so forth. Now how do we this is our HTML. How do we update this data? Let's look at the JavaScript side. For that, the JavaScript side has first thing is the JSON structure. So let's look at the JSON structure. This is a JSON for your language JSON, and the identifier is a language, and then you have each of the HTML identifiers only. So q1txt, q2txt, a2_1 first option, second option, so on and so forth. You have Hindi, then you have the same for Oriya, and the other languages which are supported over here. Now let's see how do we update this. To update this, let's look at the listener for the drop down. So this is our listener for the drop down. So when a language is selected, like user selects a language and then he presses the submit button, what happens is, we get the language which is selected, and this is just a disclaimer update over here. So disclaimer is in an image format, so we don't need to change the text for that. Here we select the language, so we check the language. If it's English, we everything is set anyway for English. If it is, sorry, this is if it is not English, because for English everything is set already. If it is not English, then we find the language which is there. Before finding the language, we take the JSON and we create, so our JSON is in string format. We need to convert it into a JSON object so that we can iterate through it. So now we have our JSON in a JSON object format. Next step, what we do is we take the language elements. Language elements are like, this is an array. Let's see how it is. So language elements is nothing, is just an array, and it captures each of the IDs. Each of the ID is mentioned over here. So we iterate through the array, and for each of the element, we find its respective text in the JSON, and then we update that element here. So before updating, we pull out the previous data which was there in the element. Why do we do that? Is because you see over here, there are these identifiers Q3 : so the text which is beforehand, which we don't need to translate and all, we capture it, we pull it out, and then we need to then we append the language text and then update the element. So this is how it's getting updated. We take the value from the JSON and we update it over here. Now let's quickly run through the app. Let's do a debug session and see how this is going. Let me expand it a bit. This is not required. Okay, let's refresh. Let's go with 3D. Select. Next. Oh, sorry, I didn't set a breakpoint. Let's set a breakpoint over here. Refresh. Hindi. Okay, now we are here. So here we have created the JSON. So you see over here, now the language selected is Hindi, and to get the element value, what we do is in our language JSON, we check the language which is Hindi, and then the element ID. So for each element ID, it will pull out the value, and that value we append to the using jQuery. We look up the element and we update the HTML for it. So let's put a breakpoint here, and then just see if we can put the element. So we are back. Right here we have the language, and then we have the element. So you see our JSON. Language and the ID. So that's we get. So we get the value over here. Let's print it out. So we get the value for the first one. Same we'll get the value for the next ones. Okay, so in summary, what have we done? We are handling multi-language web application. We're doing this on the front end only. When I say front end only, what are the other options? The other options is that you could be doing it on the back end with the database, updating from the database, pulling out the values and getting it in your JSON and then updating it. How is that better? That is better because if you want to make any changes, you make the changes in your database, not no need to edit your code. Here in this approach, you have to edit the code, which is not so great. So front end only approach, HTML, each element needs to have an ID. JSON captures JSON structure for language data, and then JavaScript to pull data from JSON and update each HTML element. Great. So I hope you like this video and you're able to use this approach in your next project. So thanks for watching, and we'll meet again with the next video. Thank you.